So, Nintendo had their giant, at this point, annual September Direct today, and they showed off quite a few things. Several things I'm super excited about, some of the things I'm a little bit more on the fence or just apprehensively excited for. And I figure, just like the PlayStation Showcase, we can run through some of the things I am excited for. So starting off at number 5, it is Metroid Dread. So I've always had an interesting history with the Metroid series. The first one I played was Metroid 2 Samus Returns, and I was too young to really care for the series much. I recognized that it was a fun game, but at the time, Pokemon was more my deal, so any kind of a more edgy or a little bit more complicated 3D platformer, Metroidvania, if you will, it wasn't really my thing at the time. Now, definitely, once the GameCube came around, I was a little bit more into it, but still, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to really invest myself into Metroid Prime as much. And then from that point on, over the years, Prime 2, Prime 3, was it Other M? I tended to just avoid the Metroid series. I think it was that experience of playing the games at a young age and not really clicking with them. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way, so I kind of avoided the series for a while. But recently I've started up Super Metroid from the Nintendo Switch online service using the Super Nintendo emulator they have built in. And I'm loving it. I'm probably a little over halfway done. Probably, I'd say, probably have a fourth of the game left, if I had to assume how much I have left. It's been a little while since I've touched it because I've been distracted by other games, obviously. But I do want to make it a point of finishing that game before I continue on to Metroid Dread. And I do want to play Dread at some point because it looks like those old 2D Metroid games. And I know we haven't had one since... Oh god, was that Metroid Fusion? Metroid Zero Mission? I don't know, it was one of the Game Boy Advance games. I can't remember. But it's been a very, very long time. So Dread looks like it will be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. It's coming out October 8th. So it's coming out the same day as the new OLED Switch. Not getting myself an OLED Switch, but I think I am interested in Metroid Dread, even if that does come at a later date. So, number 4 shown off today was actually Bayonetta 3. It was actually the very last thing they showed off. As soon as they showed this downtown city environment and it said Platinum in the background, I was like, oh, no hesitation. Of course, it can be Bayonetta 3. They tried to trick you a little bit, I think, with the whole military shooting at this big evil monster looking thing. Maybe it fooled me. It fooled me at least. I don't know if it fooled anyone else. But Bayonetta is definitely a series that I've never really given quite a fair enough shake to. I have the first 2 on Switch because I bought the physical edition of the second one, which came with a code for the first one. And it's a series that I am interested in. I want to go back to at some point. But for whatever reason, again, backlogs are backlogs, so it just ended up being thrown into the back of my pile, and I just have never got around to finishing it. But hopefully, seeing this, it gives me more of an incentive to go back and continue playing Bayonetta 1 and 2. It's interesting, though, because, I don't know, it is a case of the Switch showing the limited graphical horsepower it has, because the game looks fine. Bayonetta herself the character model is actually really nice. But there's just something, I don't know, there's just something old feeling about it, and it definitely is the Switch, because it's not the PS5 or the Series X, or even the Series S for that matter. But seeing gameplay, it really does shine, and it really does look like it will be a really fun title. But there's still that feeling of it being still kind of old. I don't know. Regardless, I think it will be a really fun time. Definitely going to be a game I'm going to have to finish after I finish the first 2 games, because I don't want to jump into the middle of the series. But it will be a game I come back to at some point. And maybe that's why it's only my 4th most excited title, because I'm excited for the series as a whole, but there's just that limited connection I have with the previous titles. So I'm excited that other people are excited, and I do want it to be good. I think it'd be really fun to experience this at some point. At number 3, we have Kirby and the Forgotten City. Now, this was an interesting one because when they were first showing it off, I was like, oh, is this a new Mario? And I was like, well, it's not clean enough to be a Mario game. And I was like, well, is it the single player component of Splatoon 2 or Splatoon 3 rather, because I knew that there was some sort of apocalyptic city or something to that extent, but no, surprisingly enough, it is a new Kirby title. So my last Kirby game I played was actually Kirby Star Allies, and it was a fun game. It was fine. my only sad story and experience I have with that game is that I actually finished it on a plane ride years ago, probably back when it came out in 2018 or whenever, and I lost the cartridge. Yep. Pulled the classic little kid losing the cartridge on the airplane, so that felt kind of dumb. But that aside, it was still a fun experience. Kirby's always fun, Kirby's always cute, Kirby's always happy. So it is definitely a game that's up my alley. But this one looks very interesting. It looks like it's taking a play out of the Mario Odyssey playbook. It almost looks like it could be semi-open world, kind of in the vein of how Mario Odyssey, it had these big sprawling levels. So not necessarily open world, but just these really big 3D sprawling open levels. And it appears to be doing that. Looking back at the trailer here, you're seeing all the abilities, fight enemies in certain ways, and it's giving me Kirby 64 vibes. I'm genuinely excited to play it because I loved Kirby 64 when I was a kid. That was one of the Nintendo 64 games I constantly had in the system. My brother and I would always find ways to finish levels in clever manners or try and get 100% of the game, which we never did. I'm guessing if we went back now, it'd be a little bit easier. But it's kind of regarded as like an intro-y kind of video game for new game players. And Kirby's just kind of been treated like that as a whole. And this kind of looks like it's continuing that same style, where it looks like it's probably a little bit easier, but it also does have some of the complexity there for some of the older audience. But I've always been a fan of Kirby, love all of his games. Definitely going to check this one out. This one launches in spring 2022. So as weird as this one may seem, my number 2 is actually Animal Crossing. They're adding Brewster and the cafe, and they're calling it the Roost. Don't know if it's always been called the Roost, but it's being called the Roost. And I am so excited for it. I know it's a small edition, and along with the upcoming fall and Halloween editions, I think it's going to be a really nice, cozy kind of addition to the museum that's been sorely missed, and I'm really excited for it to be back. Again, weird that this is my number 2, but I'm a sucker for Animal Crossing. I've been playing it on my live streams recently, and anything to bring me back and anything to get me excited about the game again always makes me happy. And of course, number 1 had to be the expansion of Nintendo Switch Online. So not only are we going to have the core Nintendo Switch Online service, which has cloud gaming, multiplayer, the inclusion of the NES and Super NES, but now we will have what they're calling the expansion pack, which has Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis. Kind of blew me away there, didn't expect that. Yeah, I probably should have anticipated it because across the various virtual consoles between the Wii and the Wii U, Sega Genesis was always kind of there. But I guess I didn't expect it to pop up for the Nintendo Switch Online service. But, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. And unless the price is, like, ridiculously high, I'm going to 100% pick this up and upgrade my service to include the expansion pass. Just the ability to play things like Sonic, Ocarina of Time, at some point Majora's Mask, and all these various Nintendo 64 classics has me super, super intrigued. Now, they are also releasing a controller, a Nintendo 64 controller. I'm guessing it's wireless USB. At least that's what it looks like through the marketing material. But they're also releasing a Sega Genesis controller as well. Now, I didn't grow up with the Genesis, so that's not really something I'm super into, but it definitely is cool that it exists. For any of those Genesis, Super Nintendo, or NES games, I usually just use my 8-bit DOE, the same one I use during my live streams whenever I play my other Switch games. So I'm super excited. I've always been a sucker for the N64. I have one right here on the floor next to me. I haven't plugged it in, so that's why it's on the floor. But I do have my gold copy of Ocarina of Time above my head, along with a boxed copy of the Japanese original Pokemon Stadium, and then the Pokemon Stadium 2 that we got as our Pokemon Stadium 1. So I'm a sucker for the Nintendo 64. It was my first home console, so it's always going to have a special place in my heart. So I'm really excited at some point to be able to play these games, and apparently it'll be launching in late October. So just in time to spend the colder months getting cozy with some of these Nintendo 64 games. So that wraps it up. Those were the 5 things I'm most excited to play or experience from the Nintendo Direct. What were you most excited for? Let me know in the comments. Try and get a bit of a conversation going. So, anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.